The Georgia summer heat pressed down like a physical weight, thick with humidity, and the scent of pine needles baking under the relentless sun. Mark, his safari shirt already damp with sweat, ran a calloused hand over the mesh of a new enclosure at the sprawling wildlife sanctuary he managed. This wasn't a pristine, heavily funded zoo. It was a passion project, a haven for rescued exotic animals, constantly teetering on the edge of financial viability. Every day was a fight, but today the challenge was heartbreakingly raw. 3 lion cubs, mere fuzzballs of tawny fur, barely a week old, their mother brutally taken by poachers in a remote part of Africa before they were airlifted to the safety of the US. Mark, they're so fragile. Sarah, his lead veterinarian, and a woman whose compassion for animals matched his own, murmured beside him. Her usually steady hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a feeding tube for the smallest cub. Without their mother's colostrum, their immune systems are compromised. We're giving them formula every 2 hours around the clock, but they need constant warmth, tactile stimulation, a mother's presence. Her voice was heavy with the unspoken fear that they might not make it. Mark knelt, his gaze fixed on the tiny, helpless creatures huddling together for warmth. Their eyes were still cloudy with infancy, their cries feeble, almost like kittens. He knew Sarah was right. The dedicated staff, though tireless, couldn't replicate the instinctive, nurturing care of a lioness. A soft whimper at his side drew his attention. It was Buster, his faithful golden retriever, a dog whose golden fur was now flecked with grey around his muzzle. Buster nudged Mark's hand, then stretched his snout towards the mesh, his tail giving a slow, almost questioning wag. Buster was more than a pet. He was the sanctuary's unofficial greeter, a calm, reassuring presence that seemed to instantly soothe even the most agitated rescued animals. An idea, startling in its audacity, began to form in Mark's mind, a desperate last resort. "Sarah," he said, his voice quiet but firm, what if we tried something truly unconventional?" He gestured towards Buster, who was now pressing his nose gently against the mesh, a soft huff escaping him. Buster has always had an incredible instinct with the younger, more vulnerable animals. What if we introduced him, under strict supervision, to the cubs? Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. "A dog? Mark, these are lions. They're predators, when they grow, even if he accepted them now." She trailed off, the implications terrifying. "I understand the risks, Sarah," Mark interrupted, his gaze unwavering. He knew the proposal sounded insane, but he also knew the alternative was likely to lose the cubs. "We'll be there, monitoring every single second. If there's any sign of aggression, from Buster or from them, we pull him out immediately. But we're running out of options that don't involve losing them." Reluctantly, after a tense moment of consideration, Sarah nodded. Her medical ethics screamed against it, but her heart for the tiny cubs urged her to explore every possibility. The introduction was agonizingly slow. Buster, sensing the fragility of the little lives, approached with an almost painful gentleness. He sniffed tentatively at the smallest cub, a little female Mark had named Luna, who instinctively recoiled with a tiny defensive hiss. But then, as Luna let out a weak, hungry mewl, Buster did something utterly astonishing. He lay down, offering his warm, golden flank, and began to softly, meticulously lick the cub's face and head, a slow, comforting, rhythmic motion. Within minutes, Luna, drawn by the warmth and the inexplicable gentleness, shifted closer, nuzzling into Buster's thick fur. A faint, almost imperceptible purr vibrated from her tiny chest. The other 2 cubs, Leo and Rex, at first hesitant and watchful, soon followed their sister's lead, crawling over Buster's broad back and settling into the curves of his body. It was an image that defied all logic, a dog acting as a surrogate mother to 3 lion cubs. Days bled into weeks. Buster became their constant companion, their protector. He'd meticulously clean them, his large paws surprisingly delicate as he nudged them closer, ensuring they were always warm. He'd herd them around their designated secure play area within the nursery, his patient nudges guiding their clumsy, unsteady steps. The cubs thrived under Buster's unique, unconventional care. They'd climb all over him, gnawing playfully on his ears and tail, their tiny teeth still too dull to truly hurt, and Buster would simply endure it all, his tail thumping a steady, contented beat against the ground. The sight of a golden retriever patiently raising 3 lion cubs spread through the sanctuary like wildfire, captivating everyone who witnessed it, a beacon of hope and an embodiment of unconditional love. But as the cubs grew, becoming more agile and stronger with each passing day, so did the murmurs of concern among the staff. Leo, the largest and most robust, was starting to exhibit more pronounced predatory instincts. His playful nips were becoming stronger, his pounces more deliberate, carrying more weight. Mark, watching from behind the safety glass, felt a knot of dread tighten in his stomach. He knew this fragile ecosystem they'd created wouldn't last forever. The question loomed, heavy and unspoken. How long could a dog truly raise lion cubs before nature, with its immutable laws, took its inevitable, potentially dangerous course? The bond was undeniable, beautiful even, but it was also a ticking clock, its final chime drawing closer with every passing week. As the sweltering Georgia summer gave way to the crisp golden hues of autumn, and then to the chill of winter, the miracle of Buster and the lion cubs solidified into a full-blown phenomenon. Stories and videos of Buster patiently grooming Leo, Luna, and Rex, or letting them playfully ambush him in their custom-built enclosure, flooded the internet, garnering millions of views and international media attention. Visitors flocked to the sanctuary, eager to witness the extraordinary bond firsthand. Mark found himself giving countless interviews, always emphasizing the dedication of his team and the unique, desperate circumstances that led to this unprecedented animal family. Yet behind the public fascination and the heartwarming headlines, a profound and growing unease settled in, particularly for Mark and Sarah. The cubs, now over a year old, were no longer the tiny, helpless furballs Buster had nurtured so carefully. Leo especially was growing at an astonishing rate, his golden coat thickening, the first faint sprouts of a mane beginning to appear around his powerful neck. His playful growls had deepened into something more resonant, a preview of the majestic roar to come. Luna and Rex, though smaller, were equally powerful and agile, their instincts sharpening with every passing day. Their interactions with Buster, once gentle and dependent, were becoming undeniably rougher. What was once a soft, playful nip now occasionally left a faint red mark on Buster's ear or leg. A joyful, clumsy pounce could send the old dog sprawling, often with a surprised grunt. Mark and Sarah spent countless hours observing the enclosure, their faces etched with worry. They meticulously documented every interaction, every change in behavior. They saw the increasing weariness in Buster's eyes, the subtle, almost imperceptible flinches when Leo got particularly boisterous. While Buster still showed unwavering affection for his adopted offspring, cleaning their faces and nudging them with his head, a natural, undeniable distance was slowly, imperceptibly, forming between canine and feline. The primal instincts of a predator were emerging with undeniable force in the young lions, instincts that Buster, despite his immense love and unique role, could neither suppress nor fully comprehend. He was a dog, and they were becoming apex predators. The turning point came on a crisp, bright afternoon. Mark was observing the enclosure from his usual vantage point, making notes, when a tense incident unfolded. Leo, in a sudden, unbridled burst of youthful exuberance, cornered Buster against a large, artificial rock formation. His growls, no longer playful, rumbled deep in his chest, a sound that resonated with true power. Buster, caught off guard, struggled to move away. As Leo lunged, not in aggression, but in a display of developing predatory behavior, his large paw connected sharply with Buster's side. For the first time, Mark heard Buster let out a sharp yelp, not of play, but of genuine pain and fear. Mark's heart pounded in his chest. He immediately activated the emergency protocol, his voice echoing through the intercom as he instructed staff to prepare to intervene. He entered the enclosure himself, moving swiftly and calmly, his presence enough to momentarily distract Leo. He physically but gently separated them, pulling Buster away. He knelt beside his old friend, stroking his fur, his gaze troubled and his stomach churning with the stark reality of what he had just witnessed. Later that evening, Sarah sat across from Mark in his office, her face grim under the harsh fluorescent lights. "Mark," she began, her voice quiet but firm, "we have to face it. They're not cubs anymore. They're becoming young adults, powerful and instinctively driven. Their natural predatory behaviors are surfacing, and they're becoming too strong, too unpredictable for Buster. It's not fair to him. He's an old dog, and it's certainly not safe for either of them anymore." Mark knew she was right. The truth, though painful, was undeniable. The time for Leo, Luna, and Rex to transition to a more natural, lion-centric environment was approaching rapidly. He had been putting off the inevitable, clinging to the romantic, almost mythical notion of Buster's extraordinary role. But reality, raw and unforgiving, had just presented itself. The question wasn't if they would separate, but how. How do you tell a dog that his children, the ones he raised from infancy, had to leave? And how do you ensure the young lions, who knew only Buster's gentle guidance and unconditional affection, would adapt to a world without their canine mother, to a world where their wild instincts would fully take hold? The sanctuary faced its toughest challenge yet, a transition fraught with emotional pain, practical complexities, and an uncertain future for an unforgettable family. The decision was agonizing but necessary. Mark and Sarah prepared a new expansive enclosure for Leo, Luna, and Rex. This habitat was designed to mimic their natural environment, with rocky outcrops, dense thickets, and plenty of space for them to develop their instincts as lions. Buster, with the sensitivity of an old wise dog, sensed the change. He grew quiet, his usual playful nudges replaced by mournful sighs. He often lay near the cubs' temporary fence, watching their play with sadness in his eyes. His world seemed to shrink in anticipation of the separation. When the day came to move the cubs, it was heartbreaking. Leo, Luna, and Rex, though growing independent, still sought comfort from Buster. Buster nudged each of them, a silent, poignant farewell. As the gates to their new home opened, Buster let out a long, mournful whine, a sound of deep grief. The first few weeks after the separation were difficult. Buster seemed lost, wandering the sanctuary and returning to the empty enclosure. Mark spent extra time with him, offering comfort. Meanwhile, the lions, initially disoriented, slowly began to explore their new territory. Their natural instincts, once tempered by Buster, now flourished as they stalked and roared, engaging in powerful play. Months passed. Buster, though still quietly dignified, gradually rediscovered his old routines. He accompanied Mark on his rounds, offering a calm presence to new rescue animals. He was still the sanctuary's beloved golden retriever. Just without his lion cubs, Leo, Luna, and Rex thrived, growing into magnificent, powerful lions. Their roars echoed through the sanctuary, a testament to their extraordinary start. Visitors often asked about the dog who raised them, and Mark would tell their unique story, marveling at the improbable bond. One crisp autumn morning, a year and a half later, Mark watched the 3 adult lions sunning themselves in their enclosure. They were majestic and exactly where they needed to be. Buster, lying faithfully at Mark's feet, sighed peacefully. The silence between them wasn't about loss, but about understanding, gratitude, and pride. They said a dog couldn't raise lion cubs, but Buster had defied expectations, giving them a chance at life and showing the world the boundless capacity for love. Everyone, indeed, was speechless. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more incredible narratives. Remember, this story is fictional and intended for entertainment purposes only.